Hello, I'm Carla Worth from Resource Futures, and I'm joined here today by Deepali from Sofies India, Natasha from the Community Design Agency, and Dia from the EcoWork Association. And today we're going to talk to you about EcoWork. So from October 2020 to April 2021, we were awarded some grant funding from the UKRI's Global Challenge Research Fund, and they were looking to support some projects that could demonstrate market creating innovations in lower income countries. So together we put forward the idea of creating a EcoWork facility. And so the idea was to support informal dismantlers in Delhi, India. And it would adapt the concept of co-working spaces and bring this to the informal e-waste sector in Delhi. And this would enable their transition and their integration into the formal sector. But before I get too much into the project details, I'll just introduce the project partners. So it was being developed by our partners in India mainly, so Sofies and the Community Design Agency. Sofies is a similarly B Corp accredited consulting firm, and they have extensive experience in the e-waste sector. And they were the technical lead, and they provided lots of the on-ground support to the Community Design Agency. And so, yeah, they are a Mumbai-based design studio, and they help marginalized communities designing methods to design and improve their own built environments with them. And they're responsible for the participatory design process of this project, which was a fundamental aspect. And we'll go into that in a bit more detail. The EcoWork Association, they're the implementing partners, and they're a Swiss nonprofit organization with the purpose of developing and spreading the EcoWork concept. They're hosted by EMPA, which is the Swiss Federal Material Research Institute, and they have over 25 years of experience in e-waste management. And then us at Resource Futures, our role was to provide the project management and the technical support, and we provided some expertise on WE and waste and sustainability. And so, yeah, together we worked on this project. So just taking a step back from that, Deepali, could you provide an overview of the informal e-waste dismantling sector?
Well, thanks, Carla. So the volume of e-waste in India is about 3 million tons, according to the UN report. And of course, it's undocumented, it's unscientific, but by most measures, most statistics say that 90% of this large volume of e-waste is actually recycled in workshops like you see on the screen, in the informal sector by people who do this in very hazardous conditions. They do the collection, the aggregation, the sorting, the dismantling, which is great, but in conditions that are polluting, that are unsafe, and that is not only dangerous to their health, but also to the community, because it's done in little workshops, in residential areas, in small rooms, in houses, on terraces, etc. But it's also, source of income for these recyclers, for these dismantlers. And in our research, we found that just in the community in Delhi, in East Delhi alone, this kind of work supports over 1,200 families. So they are micro entrepreneurs in that sense, and even though they are, maligned as the informal sector because they operate without the necessary licenses and other paperwork, they do actually bring a lot of value to society.
Thanks. Can you describe what some of the current challenges are that they face in the sector?
Sure, and this is on the screen. The picture you see is just one of those workshops, which is small. It's run by a couple of people. They do not have a lot of capital or access to capital. They do not have the tools to actually get licensed. They do not have the information, and of course, there is a lot of there are a lot of barriers for them to get legalized because of the paperwork, the CapEx requirements, and having these kind of minimum sizes of capacity to be authorized as part of the rules. So these are just some of the challenges. Of course, there are all sorts of other socioeconomic challenges that also come into play. But yeah, I think if I had to describe the main challenges, definitely it would be that it's very expensive, it's difficult, and it's yeah, it's very daunting for them to actually make this transition without any.
Thank you. And over to Dia, can you introduce the project then and then describe how it would address some of the challenges that Deepali mentioned?
Sure, thanks. So EcoWork is based on the concept of co-working spaces, which we aim to adapt to the waste sector and the target user of informal micro-entrepreneurs. So the EcoWork space is an actual physical building where micro-entrepreneurs can rent a working place or a storage unit and on a pay-per-use model and continue their business in the legal work environment. So while the EcoWork facility provides a legal work space, it has a license and it can protect the informal micro-entrepreneurs and it can support them to improve and grow their business. So we are the legal work and safe work environment, it's still the business of the micro-entrepreneurs. And as I said before, it's based on a pay-as-you-go model. So the micro-entrepreneurs can really use or only have to pay what they are actually using for. And they don't need to have the upfront investments to work in a safe and formal work environment. So through that, we can lower some of the barriers that Deepali mentioned before. And once the facility is set up, we aim to have also training on both the business side and also the dismantling sides to ensure that the micro-entrepreneurs learn how to operate in a legal environment and how to run and set up a business in the formal in the formal sector. So the goal would be really to have EcoWork as kind of an incubation hub where the micro-entrepreneurs learn and are able to get the support to establish their own company. And at some point, hopefully also move out again from EcoWork to work on their own formal company.
Thank you. What do you think sets this project apart? What makes it unique?
So I would say the unique solution is really that we provide a pathway to formalization. And we are not pushing the sector, we are providing incentives and we provide a solution to bridge this gap between the informal and the formal sector. And yeah, we do require initially external funding to set it up, but in the long term, the business model of EcoWork should be financial self-sustaining. And then also, I would say it's one of the core uniqueness of the project is also the team and the partners that we work with, who have all profound knowledge and long-term experience in the e-waste sector on a national and international level, and with the formal and informal sector. So it's really this complexity that makes the EcoWork project unique.
Yeah, certainly. I think there's really lots of potential for this concept. Natasha, just over to you. I think, we talked about the really strong links that we have with the community at the beginning. Can you go into that in a bit more detail and share some of the insights from the community and some of the activities on the ground?
Yes, Carla, thank you. When EcoWork kind of came to us and introduced this idea of best practices and safe working environment for the e-waste dismantling community, we kind of jumped in because we realized that it's key to have a participatory design process throughout this so that our assumptions are actually countered by the actual needs to design contextual solutions. So our process was about identifying the challenges, the benefits, the needs, and the aspirations of the community, and to assess if the EcoWork concept works. And if so, how can we adapt the design to their needs? We required use some tools like community meetings in order to build trust with the community and also understand their networks. We expanded from 5 people to 20 people in about 2-3 weeks. And a lot of dismantlers started getting interested in the idea and just wanted to know what it was. Initially, they were like feeling unsure, and they were like, why are you coming here? What does it benefit you? And to which we had to kind of tell them that, we're just here to introduce good practices. We also wanted to understand how they want to visualize their space. So with tools like chalk and tape, we asked them to kind of draw their space out. And a lot of things that, like you can see, the garden, the toilet, RO water, these were the things that they mentioned as something they were valuing, but was lacking in their current space. We also shared a couple of visualizations that we showed during Dia's presentation to the dismantlers to see what they think about these ideas. And we wanted to see, does that make sense to them in the way we're designing it? So we shared all of that visuals, and we also asked them what were the different kinds of services that the space should hold. So they categorized into 3 parts, and what came about was that the most important service was the prayer space, and followed by the toilets and the dismantling licensing. And overall, they kind of opened up to us and said that if you make that space, we would definitely want to come in and rent it out. So now we're in the process of taking that forward with the dismantlers. Yeah.
Thanks. Deepali, could you provide some context and say maybe what the significance of the project is in the larger context of the sector?
Yeah, I think, the reason why we're so excited about this idea and this concept is because it addresses the pain points of a couple of stakeholders in the value chain. On the one hand, you have regulators who need to enforce legislation against the informal sector because they are somehow operating illegally. On the front of the producers, they are being challenged. They have the obligation to collect and report increasing volumes of e-waste as per targets, which are legally obliged. So they do need to have access to the waste and the information on where it's coming, where it's going. So, the whole traceability. And then there's the recyclers who are, always complaining, in a way, are challenged to access the waste because it is with the informal sector. The informal sector is still handling the very, very large majority of the volume. So, bringing them together with the informal sector would really give the informal sector the access and the ability to transition to the formal sector and address the pain points of all these other actors as well. And the fact that we could demonstrate that in a very real pilot to be able to have, the impact actually documented and then shared that can be replicated and scaled is what would make it really a significant difference to the industry. And we've already had interest from other countries, in South Africa, in Egypt, in Ghana. These ideas are, getting discussed, and there is interest to also take them in those contexts. So there is a large informal recycling sector around the world, and something like this, which is a sustainable business model, which has the need and addresses the challenges of multiple stakeholders, is really something that we think could bring significant change. So that's what makes us excited about this project.
Certainly, I think there's really high hopes. Just in terms of next steps for the pilot in Delhi. As we mentioned earlier, the COVID situation at the end of the grant-funded part of this project, it was quite severe toward the March, April time. So lots of the groundwork had stopped, but we do have lots planned. And one of the key activities is to design a pop-up facility and invite groups of dismantlers to test out the functional design of the space and test some of the assumptions that we gained through the activities that Natasha mentioned and what tools they would use, etc. So that will be going on in India. And then from the UK, we are continuing to search for interested parties and for sources of funding and just expand our WE network, generally kind of building on the momentum from the recent right to repair legislation. So I'd just like to thank our project partners again, so Deepali, Dia, and Natasha. Thanks so much for joining me today. And if you'd like to learn more about the participatory design process, you can visit the Community Design Agency's website. That's www.communitydesignagency.com. And for all the latest information on the EcoWork project and some of our reports, You can check out the EcoWork Association website at www.ecowork.international. And then finally, if you're interested in getting involved or want to speak to us, you can get in touch through the Resource Futures website at www.resourcefutures.co.uk.